Welcome to ESL Podcast's English Cafe, number 25. You're listening to ESL Podcast's English Cafe, episode 25. I'm your host, Dr. Jeff McQuillan, coming to you from the Center for Educational Development in beautiful Los Angeles, California. On today's cafe, we're going to talk about spring break in the United States. We'll also go over the movie rating system for motion pictures or movies, and as always, we'll answer a few questions. Let's get started. Well, we are getting close now to the spring break for most schools and universities. Spring break, spelled spring, S-P-R-I-N-G, break, B-R-E-A-K, is the same as a spring vacation. And public and private schools, elementary schools, high schools, and universities usually take at least 1 and sometimes 2 weeks of vacation where there's no school. School is closed for 1 or 2 weeks, usually 1 week for most schools. And this is a very popular time for families and for students to travel somewhere. And there has grown up, or there has developed in the United States a tradition of spring break, especially for high school and college students. And usually that tradition is that they go somewhere warm, like a beach, and quite honestly, they have a lot of they do a lot of partying. They do a lot of drinking and dancing and things that go with that. And it's been something of a problem in some places because the college students and high school students will get sometimes very rowdy. To be rowdy, R-O-W-D-Y, means that you are making a lot of noise and you are yelling and screaming. And many of the places where these students go for spring break sometimes have problems. The police have problems with students. Typically, the spring break is related to the Easter and Passover seasons. Not always. Public universities don't necessarily have their spring break the same week of Easter the same week as Passover, but many religious schools take off or decide to have a vacation during the week before or after Easter. Easter, E-A-S-T-E-R, is of course an important celebration for Christians. Some of the popular places where students especially like to go, they like to go some places that are warm with beaches, as I said before. So they'll go to Florida, Orlando, Miami, Daytona Beach, Palm Beach. These are all beach areas where they can go and sit in the sun and get a tan. And the other places they go are, for example, California, going to San Diego, sometimes even here to Los Angeles. A very popular place, especially for college students, is to go to Mexico. They go to what are called resorts, resorts. Resorts are places that are hotels, but also have many other services. And the popular places in Mexico are Cancun, which is located on the the east side of Mexico, on the Atlantic Ocean. And another place they go is Mazatlan and Puerto Vallarta and Acapulco. These are all cities located on the west coast of Mexico, on the Pacific Ocean. The reason Mexico is very popular with American students is that in Mexico, you only have to be 18 years old to drink legally. In the United States, you have to be 21 years old. So students who want to be able to drink, they go often to Mexico. Here in Los Angeles, we are just 2 hours from the border of Mexico and the United States. The town that's closest to us here in Los Angeles in Mexico is called Tijuana. Most Americans pronounce that Tijuana, and it's often called here in Southern California just TJ. And that is also a popular place for students throughout the year to go. Well, of course, as I said before, there are problems. Sometimes students like to drink too much, and there are problems with binge drinking. And binge, B-I-N-G-E, drinking, is when you drink much too much, 5, 6, 7 drinks in a couple of hours, and you get very drunk, you get very intoxicated when you drink too much. And that's a problem with younger students especially. The movie rating system, I thought, would be an interesting topic to talk about, a culture topic. The movies in the United States are all, well, not all, but almost all, rated by a voluntary association called the Motion Picture Association of America, or the MPAA. And motion picture is the same as a movie. So this is the Movie Association. And almost all of the big films, the big movies, send their movie to this association before the movie is released. When we say released, we mean before it begins showing in the theaters. And the MPAA gives the movie a rating. And the rating system is supposed to tell people who want to go see the movie what kind of movie and what age this movie is appropriate for. The rating system uses letters, and it begins with G for general. And a G-rated movie is a movie that anyone can go see. It's okay for children, it's okay for adults, no problem, any age can go see this movie. So cartoons are often G-rated, animated pictures, Finding Nemo, those kinds of movies that are for children, many of them, those are G-rated. And that expression, G-rated, you'll often see even for things that are not related to the movies. Someone might say, I have a G-rated podcast. Means my podcast can be listened to by anyone. There's no vulgar or dirty language and so forth. Well, G is the most general, the lowest rating, if you will. The next rating is a PG. And PG stands for parental guidance. Parental, of course, comes from parent. guidance, Guidance, guidance is the same as help. So what it's saying here is that parents should be careful about taking especially young children to this movie. The next rating is PG-13. And PG-13 is a movie that anyone under 13 years old, it may cause a problem. So if you're under 13, parents should think very carefully about whether they want to take their child there. There may be sexual content in the movie. It may be very violent. There may be some vulgar or dirty language. Those are sorts of things that would give a movie a PG-13. The next rating is an R, and R is for restricted. This means that anyone under the age of 17, or 17 and under, actually, anyone under the age of 18, so anyone 17 or under, or less, in terms of their age, needs to have a parent or an adult go with them. And that's because an R-rated movie is the most violent, possibly, the movie that has the most mature scenes and ideas and language. And so movie theaters are not supposed to let anyone in to the movie that is 17 or under unless their parent is with them. However, in practice, it's not that difficult for a high school student, 17 or under, to go see an R-rated movie. Many movie theaters don't obey that policy very well. The next rating, which is very rare, is an NC-17. NC-17 means no one under the age of 17 can go to this movie, even if the parent is with them and says it's okay. And these are movies that have very strong sexual or violent themes. They're not pornographic movies. A pornographic movie we call an X-rated movie is, of course, mostly for or about sexual things. But an NC-17 is a movie that uses some language or violence or has people who are nude, and that is something that only someone 18 years or older can go to. Of course, in the United States, the age of 18, you are considered an adult, and that's why 18 usually is the place where you can do things as an adult, except to drink. You can't drink. You can vote at 18, but you can't drink at 18. Now let's answer some questions. Well, as I always say, we have many, many questions, more questions than I can answer. Our first question comes from Elijah in South Korea, originally from South Korea, now living in Canada. And Elijah wants to know what the expression stay tuned means. Stay, S-T-A-Y, tuned, T-U-N-E-D. Well, you'll often see this hear or see this expression at the end of a television show or in the middle of a television show, right before a commercial. Someone will say, the news person perhaps will say, stay tuned for more news. It means stay on this channel, keep watching, pay attention. Generally speaking, though, when someone says stay tuned outside of on the television, they usually mean that there is more to come, there is more information to come, and that you should you should keep watching or keep listening so that you're able to hear that or see that. And that expression is used a lot for people who are talking about something that will have more news. Usually it's also the idea when you say stay tuned is that it's some sort of dramatic event that's taking place. So did you hear about Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes going to have a baby? Any day now, should be coming very soon. Stay tuned. Watch the newspaper. Well, not me, but if you care, you can stay tuned. Jan from Switzerland asks a question about the difference between the word frightened and afraid. What is the difference between saying I'm afraid, A-F-R-A-I-D, and I'm frightened, F-R-I-G-H-T-E-N-E-D? Well, in most cases, afraid is a little less serious, a little less dramatic. You can say, I'm afraid of flying, or I'm afraid of going into the water, the ocean water, if there is a shark there. So it means that you have some fear. But we also use I'm afraid for saying, for example, I'm afraid I can't go, means I'm sorry I can't go. It won't be possible. Frightened is usually when you are very afraid, very scared, have a lot of fear. Often it's something that happens suddenly. So I heard a noise outside my window. It frightened me. I got scared. And it's a much more dramatic, more intense feeling, frightened is usually, than afraid. Finally, we have a question from Paul in Romania. Paul wants to know the difference between the word customer and consumer. Well, you'll often see both of these words in newspapers, and you'll hear these words, and they mean very similar and sometimes identical things. They often mean the same thing. It's someone who buys something, is a consumer, but we tend to think of consumer as a general term for someone who buys things. We are all consumers. We all consume, that is, we buy in this case and use different things. I could be a consumer of bananas, a consumer of cars and automobiles. That means those are things that I buy. A customer is usually related to a specific company, a specific product. So I am a customer of Albertsons grocery store, which is a grocery store here in Southern California. I'm one of their customers. I would not say I'm one of their consumers. Again, consumer is more general, someone who buys things. A customer is someone who's specific to usually a particular company. So thank you, Paul, for that question. That's all we have time for. As always, we encourage you to go to our website at eslpod.com for more information about this podcast. From Los Angeles, I'm Jeff McQuillan. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on ESL Podcast. ESL Podcast English Cafe is written and produced by Dr. Jeff McQuillan. This podcast is copyright 2006 by the Center for Educational Development.